I'll pass to you, CJ.
All right, so I have a very quick story here, and this one has to do with Krystal Ball and our friend David Sirota. And I'm just going to play you two quick clips, and I want your comment similar to what you like you just did. So let's see. Where's the first? Just pull this up. Sorry, everybody. First clip is right here. Okay, so let's share. This is David Sirota and Krystal Ball. Now, this first point that I wanted to make, or that they're making, Nick, is that David asks if Democrats had an economic mandate based off the midterms. That was a serious question. And I just want to hear your thoughts on that part. And then ending this segment, we'll have the second question, which is, she was asked, will new squad members be more assertive than the old squad members? And you'll be surprised of her answer. So here's the first clip, and then we'll get to the second one.
Have more traction on that. And to be clear, I also think the Republicans, while they criticized inflation, they didn't make a cogent argument about what they would do differently. Right. There was like a Republican senator who tweeted out just a picture of him at a gas pump, as if that's the only thing that he had to say. So I guess my question to you then is, knowing this, what do you think in a macro sense the election results say about what Democrats can do, for instance, on economic policy that would prove to be popular? In other words, is there a mandate here that says actually the public kind of likes
their perspective is funny. Has been I'm gonna let it keep playing, but I just want, if you see their perspective, what can the Democrats do, right? What can the Democrats do for this? And they always do. What can the Democrats do to make people believe that they're for the workers? You see how you see the direction they advocate. What would help the Democrats? We are advocating what would help the working class. Meanwhile,
it's always what would help the Democrats. And maybe I should have gave it a little more background, because originally we was going to play a little more of this, but for the sake of time, we can't do that. So this conversation, Nick, it is short, but it's still this conversation. They're talking about the midterms and how Democrats did good and how the exit polling is showing this and that, without talking about how Democrats lied. So they're essentially saying in this interview, Democrats did well, and it's because Democrats delivered on student loan debt. Krystal Ball makes that point.
I'm gonna fact check myself real quick, but I'm pretty sure the Republicans won the popular vote in the midterm.
Oh yeah, they did. But yeah, if you can do that, if you can bring up any,
go ahead. Left, and I'll be real quick, and we continue the video. We're supposed to be pro popular vote, so how can you say that the midterms went well for you despite losing the popular vote? Yes, Republicans didn't do as well as expected, but that is not a good sign for your party. They're celebrating a loss and finding a way to spin a loss as a win just because they didn't lose by 40 points. Imagine the LA Lakers and Chicago Bulls play, and the Chicago Bulls, they lose by 10 points. They're like, well, damn, thank God we didn't lose by 50, though. How did you win? And Democrats, I know you know this as well. They keep doing this. When they say, oh my God, the last midterm was great for us because we didn't get absolutely wiped the fuck out. What? But anyway, let's continue the video.
Yeah, that's such a great point. But the other, I think I have this written down part. This other part I want to say. The other part of this is, the other part that I want to interject here is that this last question was talking about inflation. They said that Democrats' messaging on economics was good, and it was proven because people somehow in the exit poll said, like where the Democrats weren't completely select in the poll. So that meant they weren't buying the narrative of the GOP and on economics. So Democrats must have some sort of message. So they lead to this question. Does this mean because Democrats won, even though Republicans' messaging on inflation was this and they still won, that means Democrats' economic message must have hit. So they have a mandate. That is what he's saying. So I summed up the first 15 minutes, so you understand where we are in the question. So now, with that said, now let's listen to it. Just again, his part.
So I guess my question to you then is, knowing this, what do you think, in a macro sense, the election results say about what Democrats can do, for instance, on economic policy that would prove to be popular? In other words, is there a mandate here that says actually the public kind of likes what Biden has been doing in terms of spending and economic policy?
So first, let me echo the points that you're making there, because that was what I initially went to as well, is that, I had seen polling previously.
She was thinking the same thing.
Really going to echo that? Nope. Oh, Jesus. Keep playing. Jesus.
Okay, what do you think this inflation situation is all about? And they're like, well, Jesus Christ, there's corporate profiteering and there's a freaking war going on in Ukraine. And we just went through COVID. And I should have put 2 and 2 together, that people were savvy enough to realize, like, this is not all to lay, at the feet of Joe Biden.
How is the war not Biden?
You just gave a reason why. What did she talk? She said, first of all, Americans acknowledge that the Ukraine war and corporate greed is the reason why inflation. So how does that lead you to the conclusion that they like Biden, who's responsible for both those things? This is literally this is Democratic Party apologia. This is pro-Biden apologia.
And she just admitted, she just came up with that on the fly just now. Like, I was coming up with the same thing, and then she, like, this is completely made up. She's jumping on this, but let's listen some more to this. Anyway, let's listen.
Okay, what do you think this inflation situation is all about? And they're like, well, Jesus Christ, there's corporate profiteering and there's a freaking war going on in Ukraine, and we just went through COVID. And
COVID, corporate profiteering, and Ukraine, isn't that all under Joe Biden's control?
Joe Biden literally breaking unions, bro. Like, whose side? Do you think Joe Biden not on the side of corporations? You guys see the implication that these people like Krystal leave? So when people say, well, Krystal criticize the Democrats sometimes, but despite those criticisms, look at the implication. The implication that Biden is somehow not tied to corporate corruption and the failure of the COVID-19 policies. This is unbelievable. Unbelievably bad.
And earlier in the interview, they said, yeah, young people came out because they believed in Democrats. This is what they're saying, abortion and all this stuff. And I'm like, they were lied to, man. How are y'all saying this in this interview? And you are even bringing up that they were lied to, that the student debt loan forgiveness thing was a sham to set up to fall like a house of cards. Go ahead, Nick, if you're going to.
Yeah, that's such a good point. So instead of coming on their stream and being angry as fuck like we are all the time and saying the Democrats tricked young people, instead of saying Democrats tricked young people, they say, oh, young people came out for Democrats, so that must be a good sign for Democrats. Do you guys see the difference in perspective? And this is what makes RB unique, because we're not doing that bullshit. But go ahead, CJ.
And I should have put 2 and 2 together, that people were savvy enough to realize, like, this is not all to lay, at the feet of Joe Biden. They sort of recognized the realities of the economic situation and, what was actually causing the dynamics that they were genuinely suffering with in their own lives. I think Democrats, I still think they missed an opportunity to make an affirmative economic case. They didn't do that. They leaned all the way into abortion, but who can second guess them at this point, given how historically, how historically surprising these results.
How can you second guess what they did in the midterms? Because look at the results of their lies, Nick. That I can't believe they're not adding that part. And let me just go to the second part now so we can get out of here.
You notice how they completely ignore the people who don't vote? And this is by design. People literally never even think about that shit. They never ask the question, like, why are working class people not going out and support Democrats? Why are people staying home? It's all about, look at the people who voted, look at the quote-unquote wins the Democrats have, and that's why Democrats are doing well. Unbelievable. Let's continue.
Yeah, so here's a second part where she answers the question about the new progressives. Will they be any more adversarial?
Benefited from that in the sense of those were the age demographics that really carried the day for the Democrats, because above 39, Democrats did not win. And of course, above 39, you have voting blocks that turn out in actually higher levels of turnout. So the party really was buoyed by big margins among young people. Let's talk about a couple of these races. I mean, races for high-profile progressives. John Fetterman pulling out a win in Pennsylvania. Summer Lee in the Pennsylvania 12th district out in Pittsburgh. I saw her during my trip to Pennsylvania.
Keep playing. You can keep playing. You can keep playing.
Pennsylvania. She successfully fended off over $4 million in spending from AIPAC. There are new progressive House members like Maxwell Frost, Greg Caesar, Delia Ramirez. Was this a particularly good night for progressives? Because I think a lot of people feel, a lot of progressives, rank and file progressive people out there, feel like there hasn't been a particularly assertive progressive bloc in the Congress. Do you think that changes?
So he's saying people have felt that the squad is bullshit. That's what he's saying, but in a nice way.
Look at what he said. People feel like, guys, y'all understand, the reason why we're so critical of these people, because we analyze propaganda. Why would he say people feel instead of just saying they are sellouts?
Right.
To me, saying AOC is a sellout is an objective fact. If you look at what she said, what she has done, what her votes are. But David Sirota leaves it up in the air. Some people say. You guys don't.
That is a great point.
Anyway, let's continue. We catch on to this shit, man. Like, it's so obvious what they're doing.
In the Congress. Do you think that changes now?
Let me go back to the question here.
Progressives, rank and file progressive people out there, feel like there hasn't been a particularly assertive progressive bloc in the Congress. Do you think that changes now?
No, I don't think it particularly changes. I mean, listen,
but we're going to continue with this plan of progressives, even though I know it's not going to change. Ha ha ha, because I got health care. Ha ha ha, because I'm a millionaire. Ha ha, because I got an Oscar.
Yep.
But they're going to continue the strategy, Nick. But Krystal Ball just admitted. No, these people ain't going to have a backbone. Are you kidding me? And we can end it there. That was the last part.
I think that says a lot. I think that video in the clip that we play, I think it speaks for its own. Like the small language cues they use. And I understand, like, a lot of people that think they're legit, that they don't pick up on it. But once you analyze propaganda, once you see how people apologize for the two-party duopoly, to me and CJ, this shit is glaring. Like, when I watch these videos, it's glaring. That's why we
have to stop it so many times, because it's literally almost every other word they're saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's why my goal of RBN and becoming an independent media person is to make sure that people who consider themselves on the left have more intellectual discipline or more well-trained to spot out this propaganda. So when you guys see this shit, you're not one of the people that fall for it. Yeah, because there's people to this day that like, oh my God, RBN is harsh on David Sirota. Oh my God, RBN is harsh on Krystal Ball. When I see that video, I'm like, man, we should win harder, because these people are playing a very particular role, and it's clear to us